this is the launching of a series of master classes that are going to focus on the youth. And just to say a bit about myself, my name is Agi Kalungubanda, and I'm one of the co-founders of Ubuntu Lab Institute. And I'll be sitting in for Papias Banda, who was supposed to be our host today. But unfortunately, as you know, our continent struggles with power. He has no power today. So you bear with me if I won't do a good job as Papias would have done. But we'll be joined in today's session by Martin Kalungubanda, who's also another co-founder of Ubuntu Lab Institute, and also Tama, who's our national coordinator for Nigeria, and Joan, who's our national coordinator for Uganda. These are among the youth in our community. When we began the journey of Ubuntu Lab Institute, we thought as a continent, there's so much that we could do if we collectively worked together. And we began the process of identifying who the change makers on the continent are, what are they up to, how can we work together. If we used a framework that is called Theory U, from intention to action. So it gives us a journey of how we can move from an idea and to making it into reality. So we have been going on for a few years now, and we also have these master classes once a month that we focus on different topics. But we just thought the youth are the future of the continent. And
because the glad drop is there.
The youth are the future of the continent. And it's our duty as Ubuntu Lab Institute to help them understand this philosophy of Ubuntu, which connects us all across the continent. So in today's session, we will take you through understanding what Ubuntu is and the framework that we have talked about, how we are using this to help us in actualizing what we want to do in co-creating Africa's future. So we will have Martin do a short presentation, and then after that, he is going to interview our two youth who I've already mentioned, Tama and Joan. And then we will, after listening to them, we are going to go into breakout rooms where we will share a little bit our own reflections and then ask ourselves the question of what am I learning from the sharing, and what questions are coming up for me on how young people can put Ubuntu into action in whatever they are doing. So that is what we are going to do. And sorry, I forgot to mention a very important person who was welcoming you all here, Sharon. Sharon is our executive director for Ubuntu Lab Institute. And we are also joined here by some of the other faculty members. I've seen Lillian, I've seen Linda, quite a number of Ubuntu Lab Institute co-members. So for now, before I invite Martin to start his presentation, I just invite you all just to switch on your videos just for a second, for us just to appreciate one another. We see each other in a Ubuntu way of greeting. The first way we greet each other is, I see you. So we just want to greet you all by just seeing you all. So if you could just switch on your videos. I know it's a challenge most of the time on the continent, but just switch on your videos just for a second. And I invite you to look around everybody on your screens and just appreciate each and every person that you are seeing on the screen. Thank you so much all for doing that. And now I hand over to you, Martin.
Thank you very much, Aggie, and Greetings, everyone. Greetings, Sharon and Lillian, Linda, everyone in this call. We are delighted that you could create time to come and learn together. Aggie spoke about the youth being the future of our continent. But we are also seeing the youth take on the challenges of shaping our future. So in that regard, then, you are the present as well as the future. And we cannot wait for tomorrow. I share the concept of Ubuntu, a well-known African approach to life, to the way we organize ourselves. We often resort to Western models of thinking. That is a legacy of colonialism. Africa has been known to create knowledge. Africa has been known to create life practices. And as we were shaping Ubuntu Lab Institute, Sharon, Aggie, Lillian, and other colleagues, we also started looking within our continent. How can we rediscover our capacity to learn from ourselves? By this inward looking, I do not mean we reject learning from other people. It is just that it can no longer be the case that we are the recipients of theories, frameworks, tools for life from outside ourselves. And at one time, Aggie and I were surprised when we were visiting in Portugal to find a Portuguese organization that was using the philosophy of Ubuntu to run its affairs. So how can we not celebrate what our ancestors found out for us? In fact, the community, and particularly the faculty of Ubuntu Lab Institute, thinks that among the many other things that the world needs to learn from us is the philosophy of Ubuntu. But through the legacy of slavery and colonialism, we tend to spit on our own wisdom. What if we rejected that and started learning from the wisdom of our ancestors? So it's in that light that I remind you of this philosophy. And it doesn't mean that the philosophy will not grow. Part of the reason why we are together here is that we may continue to build up on this knowledge and wisdom and practice. So please dig deep into your hearts, dig deep into your minds, so that we can continue building on the legacy that was passed on to us from our ancestors. So if we go that way, what is Ubuntu? Ubuntu as a philosophy looks at awakening three intelligences in us as humans: the intelligence of the open mind, the intelligence of the open heart, and the intelligence of the open will. So what is the intelligence of the open mind? It is that awareness of the unlimited possibilities we have all the time. that there is more than one right answer. It is a rejection of fundamentalism. The only truth is the narrow piece that I see. Just like there is a lot of spaciousness above our head, the skies are unlimited, the answers to our challenges are only limited by our own thoughts. So try and embrace that each moment you are stuck, it is not because answers are limited. It is because you are not pushing hard. You are not collaborating with other people. You are not open-minded. It doesn't mean that there are no hard truths. There are eternal truths, such as love and care, respect for others, respect for nature, respect for our ancestors. The other intelligence we need to tap into is that of open heart. What is on the left side of our chest, inside, pumps blood. But that's not all it does. The heart knows. In fact, some of the realities of life, such as falling in love, having regard for other people, they do not come from the head. They come from our heart. Our hearts have the capacity to connect with people and nature. It's our hearts that allow us to have profound respect and care for the elderly. It is our hearts that allow us to care even for people we will never meet. The intelligence of the open will speaks to courage, the courage to experiment our way to the future we know is possible, to the future we want. So see that as the backbone of Ubuntu philosophy. When we inquire into the deep meaning of Ubuntu, what do we see? Most of you know these lines. I am because you are. My well-being is linked to your well-being. I am because you are includes Mother Nature. It includes all humans. Even those we think of as foreigners. If Tanzanians belong to a certain geographical boundary, in Ubuntu, the boundary is only for administrative purposes, but we are one. If there is a nation called South Africa, and there is a tribe called Bemba or the Mbukushu, whatever tribe there is, it is for the purpose of organizing. We are one. So in Ubuntu, when we use the term, my well-being is intertwined with your well-being, we are including, again, Mother Nature and all humans. When Mother Nature is not well, we are not well. It's simple to see that. When there is a drought and Mother Nature is not well, we suffer the consequences. When Mother Nature is not well because of floods, we suffer the consequences. Our well-being is inextricably linked to our well-being. We are nature. My happiness is intimately connected with your happiness. Your happiness refers to Mother Nature and all humans. In Ubuntu, I cannot be proud of economically being successful if my neighbor is going to bed on an empty stomach, if the next person does not have shelter. With this understanding of Ubuntu, then we can organize ourselves differently. We go and look at natural capital, which Mother Nature has given us: land, the rivers, the forests, the waters. We begin to use these with this awareness of our interconnectedness. When we are setting up our social systems, our healthcare system, our economic system, our education system, we create those policies, we administer those policies with this in mind. An economy that rewards some while others are suffering, in Ubuntu philosophy, that's not a good economy. I am not saying we should not reward individual effort, but individual effort should always ask the question, now that I have this advantage, how can I use it to enable others to be advantaged? When we deploy the concept of Ubuntu on financial capital, money, which allows us to do all the projects and activities that we do to make an economy, we do not only worry about those that are capable of accessing financial capital. We worry about enabling everyone to access that energy which comes with finance, so that all of us can activate our human potential. The same applies to technological capital. We are, in this core, challenged by the cost of internet and other forms of technology. In Ubuntu, the principle is make technology capital accessible to everyone. But there is the other form of capital that we need to rebuild because it was taken away from us. It's called individual and collective belief capital, that we Africans must regain our God-given self-belief. We stop looking up to the West as the only region that does things well or better, that we Africans can be originators of new thinking, new practices, new ways of doing things. When you and I begin to see one another as inseparable, then we can solve the challenge of civil wars that have bedogged our continent. Then we can solve the problem of regionalism. Then we can end the fights that are based on religions that came to us. I'm not saying we reject Christianity. I'm not saying we reject Islam or other religions. Embrace as you want. But that should not be at the expense of dividing us. We are one. When we wear outside and inside the philosophy of Ubuntu, we can create an education system that serves everyone. We create processes for producing our food and using our land in a manner that serves everyone. We create rules, policies, and practices in the healthcare sector that are not based on having money in order to access quality healthcare. It's possible. We can do this. But first of all, we have to remember that this is not just a human invention. If you believe in any deity, if you believe in any divinity, but also if you believe in natural laws, we humans are equal. I am because you are. I will leave it at this point, but I underline the invitation that Ubuntu is not just a thought, it is a way of life. And in all your villages, in all your ancestral homes, when you arrived, people asked the simple question, who are you? Who are your parents? It's not because they wanted to divide you. They will find every small connection so that you become a relative. Oh my God, you were born from this woman who lived with my mother, and they came from this village together. Therefore, you are our son, you are our daughter. And at that point, your being a stranger dropped. I lived to see my father's school friends become my father as well. I lived long enough when my parents went to work in the mining region of Zambia. It didn't really matter what their tribe was. Their familyhood came from the fact that they went underground together and they became family. The concept of nuclear family didn't exist in the African society. There was just family, and it kept growing. As you met new people, the family grew. I bet some of you would not draw thick lines with some of the people you call your uncles and aunties. It is because your parents and grandparents recognize them as brothers and sisters purely because they were human. In my tribe, which is in the northern part of Zambia, it even went as far as when one of our kings died, and the son who was supposed to inherit that was not old enough to become king, somebody was asked to be a custodian. A Catholic archbishop of Portuguese origin. He was white. They trusted him. They saw him as one of them because he earned their respect. And he was allowed for a few years to be our king. And when the child grew old enough, Archbishop Dupont handed over the reins of power. So we could even, our hearts are big enough even to embrace those who enslaved us, because we are bigger than slave owners. We are bigger at heart than colonialists. And that we can teach the world, that we can teach Ukraine and we can teach Russia, that you are brothers who are butchering brothers and sisters, that we can teach many regions of the world that want to be economically prosperous at the expense of the rich in terms of resources African continent. But that we can teach one another on the continent so that we don't continue to bleed our resources to those who are not interested in our well-being. I will stop here for now so that we can have a conversation with John, a conversation with Tama, young people that I have been privileged to know through Ubuntu Lab Institute. And I deliberately use this term. They are young in age, but in my view, they are also elders. The concept of elder does not refer to age. The concept of elder refers to someone who has begun the journey of taming one's ego. Ego is important as we grow up. But when we don't graduate from our ego, what do? Everything centers around us. We look for ourselves first. And if we grow a little bit more, we just look out for those we were born with. But when you start becoming an elder, you start using the muscle of those you were born with in order to serve those you were not born with, because they are brothers and sisters. So to me, when I experience, and believe it or not, I have never met Tama in person. I have never met Joan in person. We meet like all of us are meeting. The majority of us are meeting online. But the bonds are very strong. And I know from the experiences of looking at the communication we have in Ubuntu Lab, when an Ubuntu Lab person shows up in John's country, which is Uganda, John and our community invite that person to meet them. I know Lillian is constantly receiving people because Nairobi is a hub of travel. Lillian is constantly welcoming Ubuntu Lab people whenever they happen to be in Nairobi. The same happens in any other capital city, town, or village where an Ubuntu Lab person appears. But we don't want this to be simply a club that looks within ourselves. John, briefly tell us about yourself. Who are you? What's your background? And then I will turn to you, Tama, after John.
Thank you so much, Martin. Good evening, everyone. I am very excited to be here, but also because all that Martin said made me blush, and it was so kind. So I'm really grateful that you hold me and the other young people contributing here in high regard. For those who don't know me, my name is Joan Patience Atuhaire. I come from Uganda. I am a psychologist by profession. And over the last 3 years, I have worked in the healthcare and gender equality spaces where I have developed impactful programs and publications basically aimed at influencing individuals as well as the government to create change as regards to different social issues. So some of the most notable contributions that I can talk about really here in Uganda have been contributions that I made to the Domestic Violence Act, white paper reforms on the marriage bill of 2022, gender audits of the national budget that was 2023/2024, as well as 2022 and 23. So a lot of this work has been largely with different non-governmental organizations that are really organizing to ensure that women's needs, young people's needs are included in decision-making processes, but most especially when government is prioritizing financing towards youth development. On a lighter note, I love music. I have a failed music career. I always joke about it. I used to sing a lot while at the university, but now I can't even hit a single key. How I joined Ubuntu in 2018. At the time, I was in my first year at the university. I was broke and I had these friends who were slightly older than me, Godfrey, and they told me about this community that had really intellectual conversations. And at the time I was really fiery. I had so much fire. I can't even explain how much fire. Like if you got that fire, it would burn a bush. So at the time I was really fiery. I was so excited. And the first time I attended the meeting, all of the peers were slightly older than me. I don't even mean slightly older, I mean like my parents' peers. But it was really the opportunity to be heard, for them to respect where I was coming from with the different views that I had about life, about change, but also to allow me to grow, you know. These are people who are really far off in their careers, but they allowed me on my growth journey. They allowed me to experiment. And for that, I am really grateful for the gift of community, but also for holding my hand through that particular process. Yeah, I especially recognize our national coordinators, Consulas and Haj Dauda, who are also here on the call. We have Justina. We really have a vibrant community in Uganda. And I am privileged to be among the national coordinators. So thank you so much. I can go on and on and on, but I am really honored to be one of the guest speakers today.
And just for interest's sake, you are still young enough. You know, music is part of what makes us as Africans. We express our joy, our sorrow, our anxieties through song. Any chance you can still go back to music.
Definitely, definitely.
Wonderful. A psychologist who sings and can make policies. Imagine the combination. Tama, tell us about yourself and what has been your journey to Ubuntu Lab Institute.
Okay, thank you so very much, Martin, for that. Anytime I watch you talking, it gets me thinking again of who I am. So thank you. So for those who don't really know me, my name is Tama Mondeyari. I am from Nigeria. I am an economist and also a development professional. In the past years, I've had the privilege to work at the Office of Special Advisor to Lagos State Government on investment and SDG, where I lead several projects, where I developed and also lead. And I'm also the founder of African Center for Youth Development, Education and Advocacy Initiative, where we discuss issues that relate to quality education, youth empowerment, and also advocacy, working together hand in hand with the government. For the last 3 years, I've been engaged so much in assessing government performance, most especially the senators here in Nigerian House of Representatives. For the past years, I've been assessing their performance, what they are doing. And also I'm a columnist. I publish on the newspaper every Monday, where I discuss issues that has to do with African development, most especially in the area of African Continental Free Trade Area, trying to contribute my best to see that we have a continent that the next generation will come not to struggle the way the former generation struggled to get us where we are today. One of the reasons why I joined Ubuntu, I don't really know how come. I just come across a meeting on one very day. I don't know. I was just on the internet during COVID-19, 2019. I was just surfing the internet because then I I was just every day I just go on the internet, let me just learn something new. And I came across people talking. And I was like, okay, let me pay attention to what is happening over here. And I realized most of the things that were being discussed are things that I keep asking myself. I was finding answers to some of the pressing questions that I was having within myself. You know, the questions of why are we even on earth? You know, are we here to just live and go, or we are here to take care of Mother Nature? Why is it that we are very, very connected to plant? Why do we breathe in what plant breathe out? And why do plant breathe in what we breathe out as humans? You know, I begin to ask myself this question. Being an economics also, I was very interested in development economics. So I've read different theories about how to grow economies. I was asking this question. What is the reason behind people do everything they need to do just to get what they want at the end of the day they died? And I remember that very day, there is this man from South Africa, he's led now. I can't remember his name. He was the one that was taking the lecture that very day. And I remember after the lecture, he private chat me. We got talking about how I can become the best version of myself. And I'm someone very, very interested in politics. And I told him I have passion for politics. That's why anything that's with politics drew my attention. And he was able to guide me, not until he passed on. He's from South Africa. I can't remember his name. I've tried to remember his name. I could not remember his name though. You know, so that was my journey in Ubuntu. And ever then, I've always become the best version of myself. And till now, people can attest to it. You know, I'm currently undergoing a program in my master's in international affairs and diplomacy. You know, I can see my fellow students said, please, the kind of leadership Tama is displaying, we need to learn this thing. And I told them yesterday in the class that, please, we are having a lecture today. You guys need to join to know where Tama get all those things that he or she, that I am displaying as one of you. So
thank you. Thank you very much. To you both, Joan and Tama, clearly, even online, I can feel the fire in your belly. Where does that fire come from? John.
That's an interesting question because I don't even know how to answer it. I can only say it's just really consciousness that weaves into being part of a community like Ubuntu, as well as other transformative programs. Because while you're here, you're exposed to aspects such as sensing, creating initiatives that directly impact communities. And when you see something going wrong, you just can't sit by. I think a personal experience that I have is usually scrolling through social media. And in Uganda, we have a movement of digital activism that's sprouting up. And people share a lot about how government resources are being mismanaged or being misappropriated to serve individual needs. And you feel angry, you feel agitated, and you're constantly asking yourself, what can I do? How can I contribute towards this? How can I make a difference? Because this directly affects me, whereas I don't feel like there is a pinch now, but in one way or another, in terms of how I'll be taxed tomorrow, in terms of the kind of education that my children will have, you know, that becomes an important issue. So it also helps to have community, because through a community you can share and say, you know what, there is this persistent issue in our community. How do we address it collectively, as opposed to an individual approach to it? And I will again re-echo the African proverb of alone you go fast, but together you go far. So collective action is only possible when you meet like-minded people and just reignite the fires that each of you has. Thank you.
Fantastic. I mean, Tama, the same question. When, as an outsider to Nigeria, it's not only complex, but it's also vibrant. Where does a young person get that fire in the belly to do the things that you are doing?
Okay, thank you. The answer is not far-fetched. Can someone like me being in a midst, can a firewood like me being in the midst of fire and not catching fire? It's not possible. I am a summation of the classes I've been part of. When I come to the consciousness of realizing that my best is not only found in me, my best can be found around me. It becomes a call to duty. I keep saying this in a long time ago that I am not just part of Ubuntu, but I am Ubuntu. Anywhere I go, ask people around me. You can carry out a survey of over 200 people that are around me. They can tell you that if it is Tama, we can entrust him with everything. Everything. In my community, they entrusted me with everything. In the mix of everybody, because when we grow together, we all grow. But when one individual grow, the other people that didn't grow must pull you down. So you are not good on what you do alone. But when collectively we grow, imagine being in a class where they told you, how can you see your neighbors, you eat 3 square meal in a day and your neighbor go to bed hungry. It kept making me think. Initially, I had no love with Mother Nature before. But now I begin to ask myself question, truly, what is even the importance of trees? And I realize that trees are not just trees as we see them. They complement our existence. We cannot live without them as they cannot live without us. I become conscious of myself. I begin to become deliberate in what I do. I begin to become intentional in how I move, in how I attend to the things of life. It's not just about me, but it's about the society around me. As I said it time without number, anywhere I found myself, I see a mother in every woman. Not because, no matter what I see you anywhere, I see a mother in you. I see a brother in everybody. I see myself in everybody. Can you do yourself bad? No, it's the same thing. I can't treat you bad because I know you are me. So it is the accumulation of all the Ubuntus. And that's why oftentimes I tell my people, you are missing a lot. So it is a summation because Tamas in 2018, I belong to a school of thought where before I can do anything to get what I want, to get to any level that I can get to, just to be sure I'm there, to prove to you that I can get there. But now it doesn't touch me again. But when we get there together, it is a thing of joy. You look at your colleague and said, yeah, we made it together. Imagine being at a mountaintop, you alone. You cannot look on your left and right to tell someone we made it. But imagine if everyone made it to the mountaintop. You'll be there celebrating one another. So it is the accumulation of my classes here. I'm telling you, it is not what I read in books because my books told me different thing. It is what I learned from people like Agi, from people like the coordinator from Kenya, that other mommy. It is because after every class, I have a self-reflection. I ask myself where I am now, with what I've learned. What will be me in the next 2 years? Mr. Martin, you have not seen the best of Tama yet, but I'm sure with the new classes that will be launching, we will not just put the Africa in its place, but I can assure you that you have set up a fire that will spread across the continent of Africa. So the answer is not far-fetched, is the total sum of my classes that I've been with Ubuntu Lab Institute. Thank you.
And while you are at it, Tama, could you, in 3 sentences or so, give us your own meaning of Ubuntu?
Okay, you have actually said it again. I am because you are, but it's beyond that. It's beyond rhetoric. To me, the real meaning of Ubuntu is empathetic. You need to be empathetic. It means self-awareness. That is where sensing, prototyping comes in, and also determining. You have to, because naturally you can't get what you want freely. You have to be determined to go. People, we are swimming against the earth. We are swimming against the tide.
I will switch to John. In your own words, John, what does Ubuntu mean?
What comes to mind is being held and not being alone in whatever you're going through, whatever you're experiencing, whatever you're building, whatever you're working towards. You're not alone. There's a group of people that is supporting you directly or indirectly.
Wonderful. And can I just invite all of you, those that can type, kindly put in the chat your own meaning of the concept, the philosophy, the practice of Ubuntu. We'll take a minute to just compose that. And then you put it in the chat. What does Ubuntu mean to you? Switch on those buttons on your laptop, on your phone, and we want to read what that is. And I will ask Aggie, Lillian, Sharon, when you see them dropping, take turns to read some of them. We won't read everything, but please keep on highlighting what is being put in the chat.
Seeing others in ourselves, togetherness, Ubuntu, togetherness, teamwork, caring for one another. Together we can. It means accountability and responsibility to my society.
I'll read
Family.
some. Humanity to
Sharon.
others. Ubuntu to me is I am successful. Mirroring yourself through other people. Working together and thinking of other people. Interconnected. Compassion. Seeing everyone happy and healthy, loving one another. Transformative thinking, being and doing. When we start to feel that everyone feels in our society, what everyone feels.
Collective well-being, being in someone's shoes. Ubuntu to me means seeing myself in others. My well-being is dependent on others' well-being. We are intertwined.
And there is much more. And just before we go into small groups to think about this, John, what is the one thing that scares you about the future of our continent that makes you wake up and do the things that you are doing in order to create a different path? What is the one thing that scares you about our mother continent that sort of acts as a jumpstart each day for you to do what you are doing in the community?
Thank you so much, Martin. I would say that it's the fact that I still feel like we are still colonized. We are free, but we are not free. And particularly something that's really close to my heart is relating to independence of the mind and how as African leaders, as students, as professionals, we are still not able to translate our words, our thoughts into action, because we probably lack the validation that our approaches are perfect, or we lack access to financing, financial resources, human capital to execute all these things. So you find even individuals who have been exposed to at least a fair level of education still unable to create jobs for themselves and ultimately solve emerging or existing societal problems in our community. So I think that's really something that really bothers me. And through my work each and every day, I am constantly thinking, how can I be an example? How can I act? How can I innovate? How can I create and show young people that they can, with limited resources, with limited experience, you can learn, you can take your own journey or path and still learn from it. I think it's also the fact that we have a moral degeneration that has been normalized, And that's largely work that is currently being done by the Ubuntu Integrity Lab, which is Uganda's chapter for Ubuntu. And we identified that there was a crisis around corruption, a crisis around rape, defilement, all those things that are being normalized in our society, you know, cheating exams, just really stealing, just dishonesty. People lie on TV, people steal government resources, people steal from their own businesses. It's really crazy. So a lot of our work is really centered on instilling essential skills, but also provoking thought around academic integrity, around the different ways that we have fallen off the course to live honest lives and just create a world that is meaningful and equal for each and everyone. So those are really the two things that I can talk about that give me sleepless nights. It's the lack of integrity and the just inaction is what I would call it summarily.
Fantastic. Tama, one thing that worries you about the future of our continent?
Okay, thank you so much once again, Martin. One thing that kept me worried is this mental cold war. You know, what I call it mental cold war is when I look around young people these days, there's this mindset, just as rightly said from the beginning, they don't actually believe in themselves. You know, we have so much respect what was handed over to us by visitors, and we let go of the original, what was handed over to us by our ancestors. You know, I'm sorry, I'll use my case as Nigeria as a case study. You see young people doing anything, not minding taking the life of their parents just to become rich is problem. So, but what I do more, I tell myself I work on the 3 E's. I said I keep empowering as many as I can, and live an exemplary life. You know, because the best way to teach is when you are living it. You know, people tend to do more, and I try as much as possible to educate. That is why that was one of the reasons why I established the African Center for Youth Development, Education, and Advocacy Initiative. So our mindset, it worries me so much. We are so settled with how to use. You see, a young African know how to use, but we don't know how to produce. You know, and we are so okay with it. You know, it's fine as long as I know how to use it. So whatever that is presented to us, we are okay with it. So it's something that keeps me worried every day.
Thank you. Both of you are talking about the colonized mind. The mind that stands in your way, as you said, Tama, the best or better version of yourself. We should not underestimate how colonized our minds are. And thank you for referring to that, both of you. If I could just chip in with my own issue that worries me, among many other issues, it is the growing individualism. Success is at individual level. Everything we look at is at individual level. Passing exams, getting a job, getting the best house you could find. Individualism, then it can issue into corruption, bending the rules, not respecting the lives of other people, not respecting the rules of the game. But I'm pretty sure there are many other things that worry you. John, you spoke about integrity. And I know that the Uganda chapter of Ubuntu Lab Institute is focusing on that. Integrity means whole. It means if I look at myself as whole, I immediately see other people. Integrity means respecting what belongs to other people. And if I want to use it, then I get their permission. Integrity means when I say I will do 8 hours of work, I put in 8 hours of work. Integrity means my word is my honor, and I will show it in action. Thank you for educating us in that regard, Joan and Tama. Don't go away, because when we come back from the small groups where we are going to engage in conversation, people may want to interact with you. Sharon, could you put us into small groups? And in those groups, kindly share how the philosophy of Ubuntu is influencing your life, or if it hasn't started influencing your life, could influence your life. But it could also be any other issues that you regard as important. And if you have a chance, reflect on how you can become more of an elder, even when you are at a tender age. Welcome back. Now we have a few minutes to listen to some of the insights you may have gotten from the group conversations. Online, we are spoiled with 2 ways of contributing. You can contribute in voice, and you can contribute in the chat. We will try to be as brief as possible so that we can get as many insights as we can. What stood out for you? What was awakened for you? Floor is open. Lena.
Thank you, Martin, and hi, everybody. I think for me, 2 things. It's this fire. We're just speaking about this fire that, and how can we, bring all this fire together to energize ourselves. And I just love that, because it always brings us passion. So how can we tap onto that more? And the other thing is that we're so similar. The problems that we're facing in our communities, the challenges that sometimes we feel are ours alone, are more common, and we need to share more so that we can support each other and learn from each other. Thank you.
Lina, you will forgive me for exploiting your voice and presence. You yourself, as you talk about fire in the belly, you are always carrying the fire in the belly. Even when your country has gone for war, is at war, you served in government, then came out when the government collapsed, or even before it collapsed, because there were certain things you didn't agree with. Where do you get the hope from, Lina? In a few words.
Honestly, Martin, I get the hope from people like ourselves, and this, and just listening to people, having faith, and carrying the hope for a better tomorrow. And I think this is what keeps me going. So I thank you all.
Thank you. Other voices? If you don't speak, I'm looking at you and I will just point you out. Even if your camera is closed, I will still see you. Mwenda.
Thank you so much. I think I was privileged to be in a group with fellow comrades from Kenya, Wasie and Linda. And I think one thing that really stood out for me when we were having that conversation is what is happening in Kenya right now. I happened to be the youngest in the group when we were having this conversation, and what is happening has been happening since the beginning of the week. Is we've been having in Kenya an online revolution, and just online activism, and for the collective good. And interesting enough, this time it hasn't been politically driven, but just young people really taking their rightful place in terms of being now involved in how governance is happening, especially now in relation to the finance bill. And I have found myself very fired up about this issue. I think, having these conversations with everyone that I'm meeting, and I think it's something that, I've heard also from Wasi and, Linda, just being excited about what is happening, that collective power of young people and, interestingly, fighting individualism. That is the enemy, and just going back to the root and just taking that collective social responsibility in the spirit of Ubuntu. So it's an exciting time to be a Kenyan, young person in Kenya, and I'm just loving everything that is happening. Young people taking their rightful place and just collectively, coming together using these platforms, the online platforms, and exercising that power of, unity and being together in spaces and letting their voices be heard. And I believe action is going to, there's going to be actual change even moving forward in future.
Thank you, Mwenda, and young people giving us the hope again. And as I invite your voice, Fiston, as briefly as you can, include sharing what keeps a young man in a refugee camp hopeful and finding ways where there is impossibility until you took yourself for further studies in Canada. How does someone living in the conditions of a refugee keep that hope? Sorry to put you on the spot, Fiston.
No, thank you. Thank you, Martin. I'd like to share a few words by a friend of mine before I go on speaking. Here's the post he made. He wrote, "In this system, absolutely no man is secure, and you instinctively know it. You strain every nerve to educate your son and give him advantages. Over whom? Over the son of your neighbor. You are told everlastingly there is room on top. On top of whom? Of course, on top of the fellow man." These words stayed with me for the fact that, I'm in Canada and I'm acquiring this type of education, and I'm not fetching or pouring into an empty recipient or empty cup. I came with something else, some type of education, some type of tradition, some type of wisdom. And I want to weave this into what we just discussed into our breakout room with fellow colleagues from Ghana and from Zambia, who speak about social solidarity. And I have a lot of questions. I'm so much exposed to, all sorts of information in and out on internet, offline. I have people who look like me who deny their identity. I have people who look like me who look down on the education that I came with. And also, I read about the concept of conflict quite a lot. And listening to you, Martin, talking about Ubuntu being the way of life, I have a lot to know. I have a lot to learn. I have a lot to question. So why is there the cross-country feud, especially within among people, the young people? We have this go back to your country. And it's not only happening in Canada, it's happening in South Africa with Nigerians. It's happening in Nigeria with South Africa. It's happening in Ghana with people from Burkina Faso. It's happening in Congo Brazza. So if we know that Ubuntu is a way of life, if we know that borders or boundaries have been set there for the purposes of organizing, the question to me is how do we disseminate, how do we share the Ubuntu? Now, how do we preach Ubuntu? How do we imbue that within ourselves on a daily basis? How do we live that Ubuntu concept? Because I don't think this is some kind of education you want to integrate in the formal education. There's too much chaos into that integration. But the good thing as young people, how do we use that? How do we integrate that in our engagement as we approach others, as we embrace all these sorts of knowledge, concept? So that's the question I have. The hope. I have hope because I have so much trust into human interactions, in human relations. I tell my story as I got to Canada because of people. That is all. I knew people that knew me, that knew other people. And that's how I got to Canada. In a very miraculous way, I had to raise about $100,000 that I couldn't afford. Until people like Sharon, people like Tom interviewed me and said, I'm going to share your story with friends that I know. And friends came in, they traveled all the way, they met me in the camp, and they said, want to pay for your studies. And they paid, and I am here. So yes, it's good to be here. Yes, it's good to learn. Yes. But how do I use? And maybe could be, topic for the next sessions, or we could discuss here. How do we use? How does Ubuntu apply into the mayhem that we are experiencing within our own African context? Because it's a way of life, of course. How do we live that?
Yeah.
That's a help now. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiston. Grace. Insights, reflections. What touched you when you were in the group or when you listened to Tama and John? Grace, if you're speaking, you are on mute.
Thank you, Martin. Well, I'm going to start from the group that I was with. I was in a group with Barack from Kenya, Madeline from Nigeria, and Harriet from Zambia. So from the question that was given to us on our reflection about the philosophy of how Ubuntu is influencing us, we got to discuss about relationships and how the aspect of Ubuntu is all about relationships and the perception that we have towards each other. We also discussed about how we should consider everyone as a brother and a sister, and all of us have things to contribute. All of our life journeys have something that we can learn from each other. We also got to learn that we are only as good as our communities, and we should be so inclusive towards each other. We should be very considerate as well. Consideration is one thing that we kept on talking about in the group which we were in. And as young people, we further concluded that we should take up responsibility. We should not just be consumers, but we should also actively engage towards the kind of Africa that we want to see. So those were the reflections that we got from our group.
Thank you. We'll take in the final two from Bruhan and Bathsheba.
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity. I can say this session has been one of those that have made the fire contagious to me as well. So I had a spillover effect to me of the fire. And when I look at the word integrity, there's some thoughts that came to me, and that resonated more to. I'm just not looking at integrity, but also look at it in this integrity of self and also integrity of with others. Integrity with self and also integrity with others, and this correlates to what Martin said, that if you say I'm going to put in 8 hours, are you really going to put in the 8 hours? Now that connects to integrity with self. Are you lying to yourself? And if you don't put in the 8 hours, meaning you won't deliver, then you won't have integrity with others. So it's something that really touched me. And then the other part is on the leadership of our community. We talked about like leaders do not based on our own original thoughts, but go out abroad to maybe lobby to develop their communities. But instead of using our own resources and then develop our communities, and now it calls out on us as youth, because they say the growth of a community it depends on their leaders. So if we as youth, we shouldn't shy away from taking on these positions if we have the opportunity to. And whichever opportunity you have, let's share the knowledge, either using online platforms or any other way you can to pass on the knowledge to others. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bruhan. Bathsheba.
Hello, everyone. So I was opportune to be in the same group with Lina, and she shared about her present. She was in Sudan before now she's in Canada. I was really impressed because despite that, she says she's still in Ubuntu. So it's really stood out for me that it does not matter the location, it does not matter where you are. Once the empathy is there, as Tama said during his session, once that empathy is there for your society, we can do a lot of things. And I was really impressed with her encouragement. I didn't know when I started speaking a lot of things. I thought I was disobeying Martins when he said we should allow others talk. I spoke so much and I was really encouraged. Thank you for sharing your experiences, everyone. I'm really encouraged. Thank you.
Wonderful. What are we hearing here?
There's one comment from Vu as well in the chat. As I get deeply absorbed into the Ubuntu, is changing everything within me, and I'm becoming more empathetic to my environment and how together with others we can build a better community and world.
Thank you. And there are many unspoken insights. Keep sharing. For those of you that are on the program we are running on Digital Circles, keep the conversation going there. If you have not joined in any form in this community, please do. But what are we hearing? That if we choose, we can reinvent democracy. How we allow every voice to come through. Democracy doesn't have to be just the way the Greeks and the Western world handed it over to us. If it's the power of the people, Africa can reinvent that in its own way. We can create financial institutions that serve our interests. There is no reason why people in this group and more who empathize with the notion of Ubuntu cannot create a new form of banking, a banking system that does not use the criteria of don't lend to someone who does not have collateral. If I am poor, it means I will be permanently locked in not having. It means we have to reinvent our healthcare and our education system. And much more importantly, we have to shift our relationship to land. Land is our birthright. If we keep spoiling her, we are the losers. Mother Nature lives for millions and billions of years. Long after we have gone, she will rejuvenate herself. So Mother Nature doesn't lose. She hosts us all the time. We can mistreat her and become eventual losers. Let's wake up. Let's not give away land. And the little portions that we have, can we tend them so that she can continue looking after us? And the final comment from me, if we can, let's connect more than that little tick and like on social media. It's too thin for us to connect. Let's shift the way we engage with one another on social media. It's a platform created by the West, but we can use it like we heard from Wenda and our colleagues in Kenya. We can use it to build, to connect. Announce yourself when you are in another city and let colleagues come and meet with you in person. In Africa, we don't stab in the back those that we have shared a meal with. Have a cup of tea, share a meal. We have to be intentional about interpreting the philosophy of Ubuntu into reality. If it remains a concept in our head, we'll keep laughing at ourselves decades to come. Back to you, Aggie and Sharon.
Thank you very much, Martin. I think it will be back to Joan and Tama because they are holding the space together with Papias in leading the coming months focus on young people. So we'll have I don't know if you have agreed yet, but I don't think for what the next topic will be, but already I think there was a suggestion coming from Fiston. But you want to say a little bit, Tama and Joan, about what plans are?
As you do that, you could also give your final reflections as part of the closing. Let's start with John.
Thank you very much. So we intended for this to be the start of a series of masterclasses where we can think about the state of affairs in Africa, inspire thought, inspire action to drive sustainable change the Ubuntu way. So we have a series of masterclasses, but I can't particularly put a finger to which one we shall be starting with. That will definitely be announced. But we intend to grow a community of young people who are vibrant, young people who are thinking critically about creating sustainable change, and for this to also have a ripple effect in the different hubs that we are in, invite other young people who are in your hubs. We shall be talking about innovation. Tama will talk about his input around the African Continental Free Trade Area and the opportunities underlying which Africans like us need to benefit from. We shall be talking about human capital and skills for the 21st century. We shall be talking about digital technologies and what that means for growth in Africa. So the conversations are intended to be really light, really casual, really informative, and as inspirational as possible. Over to Tama.
Okay, sorry, the continent is actually suffering from light, so I'm currently in the dark. So permit me to be without the video. Just like what Joan said, you are truly on track. Whatever we want to do, society is involved. Whatever we want to do, Mother Nature is involved. We don't want to be the contemporary business owners who explore from the society. I want to see how young people grow with that mindset, just like what Fixon asked a question of in the contemporary world, how can we use the philosophy of Ubuntu to change things? That is where it all begins, a little drop of water. I want to see how we can bring as many as we can to see how we have this conversation, not the usual entrepreneurs that we want to have. We want to have a collective entrepreneurs, not the individualistic entrepreneurs, but a communal entrepreneurs. So it will be an exciting opportunity in the next few weeks. And I explore each and every one of us. If you truly love Africa, share the good news about the next master classes that will be happening. But just as you said, you'll be hearing from us on the next topic because the person that's supposed to give us the topic is not on the seat at the moment. Thank you.
Okay.
Aggie, maybe I can just add that these classes will one every month. and generally on the second Wednesday of each month at the same time. Joanne, you were going to say?
Oh, I'm sorry for interjecting you. There's a few people who had joined the call and they would like to continue being part of our community. So I was suggesting that they could share their names, contact and country so that we can be able to follow up on their participation and just really keep in touch. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Yeah, just please pop your details in the chat and we'll follow up. Yeah. Maybe your name and phone number or your email address.
Yeah.
Alternatively, I'm going to post my email here and you can just get in touch with me.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for turning up. I'm so excited to see these big numbers. It gives me the hope for the continent. So I'm looking forward to these other sessions that these young people in our community are going to be holding. And please, let's get more young people on board. Let this fire that we have lit today burn and really burn so hot and let the changes come. So in the usual way that we usually end our sessions, we switch on our videos and also our mics and say our goodbyes in our own languages. Until next time, Musale Bueno Monse. I can see
Musule
Thank you.
bulunji
Say
mlande
Anjima.
salama.
Say Anjima.
Salama.
Salam pila. Salam
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
Good night.
Well done. This was beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Good night.
Thank you so much. It was really inspiring.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Tama, Joan, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Martin and the team for the opportunity.
You're most welcome, and thank you to you.